Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to yet another Destiny 2 Forsaken video, and today I'll be showing you a comprehensive guide for the Riven boss fight. Now this is the 6th encounter out of 7 for the Last Wish raid, and it is by far the hardest encounter that Bungie has ever produced. To say it's difficult would seriously be an understatement. This is where people will spend upwards of 12 hours trying to beat him. It took me and my fire team about 6 or 7 hours straight, but we finally did do it, and I'm super proud to say that me and my fire team were the very first team on console to beat it. Now console is either Xbox or PS4. There was about 12 fire teams that beat this raid before us, and every single one of them were on PC. That just goes to show you where all the hardcore players are at now. But I was super proud of that, and honestly, because we were amongst one of the first people to complete this raid, I was able to really gather my thoughts and put together a awesome guide that's filled with tons of information, lots of tips and tricks that'll make this thing as smooth as possible for you and your fire team. I'll be covering everything from the fire team composition to the recommended light level to the weapon loadouts and everything in between that kind of stuff. Before we get into the guide, I do want to mention that I am giving away one of the final Rockstar emblems that I have. If you didn't know, there was a promotion with Rockstar Energy that Destiny 2 did, and they have these exclusive cans, and underneath there's an exclusive emblem code. Now I am giving away this emblem code. All you have to do is of course be subscribed, like the video, and the comment of the day will win the actual emblem. Now the topic is, what is your favorite raid of all time in Destiny 1 and 2, and why is it your favorite? The best comment will win, and I will of course just reply to you and we'll get in contact. So without further ado guys, let's get right into this actual guide because it is hefty. Get a snack because it is going to take a pretty long time to go through every single detail. First thing I want to talk about is the fire team composition. This is what me and my fire team did in terms of everyone's supers and characters, and this may probably work for you guys as well because it is the easiest to follow. You're going to want 2 hunters, 2 warlocks, and 2 titans, so overall it is a pretty balanced raid. Both hunters do want to be on the Celestial Nighthawk with Golden Gun. Reason being is because there's a part in this raid where you need to flinch the boss repeatedly, and the best way to do that is with a Celestial Nighthawk. You also want 2 of the new Warlock supers, which is Well of Radiance. This is absolutely amazing, and I would say this is a necessity for this entire encounter. You then want to have 2 titans, and they can be either on the hammers or they can be on the Sentinel subclass. That is really up to them. Now if I had to recommend a specific power level, I would say that the minimum has to be 550. I realize that there's not really that many people out there who play Destiny right now that are 550, but if you're doing something as high of a power level and high of a difficulty as this raid, then you have to be at least 550. If you're anything under that, you're going to get melted by ads and you're going to do considerably less damage. So 550 is what I would recommend as the lowest. In terms of loadouts, you do not want to use the EP shotgun. The reason being is because if you get close to enemies, they are absolutely going to shred you, as the power discrepancy here is very high. The EP shotgun is great for other encounters, but I would really recommend taking it off for this one. Instead, you want to put on 2 primary weapons like maybe a scout rifle and a pulse rifle, and bows actually work very well in this encounter because you can actually charge it behind cover, peek out for a second, slingshot it at somebody's head, and it just does wonders. So a bow and a pulse rifle, or a scout and a pulse, even a hand cannon and a scout rifle or a hand cannon pulse rifle is really good. In your heavy slot, unfortunately right now because of the power levels, the Whisper of the Worm is absolutely essential. Everybody's going to want to have that on because you do need to snipe the eyes of the actual boss, and many people are going to have to do that repeatedly throughout this encounter. Here are some side notes that you should definitely take with you. Number 1, if you're on a Warlock, you want to use the Healing Rift. If you're on a Titan, the Syntheseps Exotic is absolutely brilliant. It's going to scale up your damage when there's ads surrounding you. And when you're sitting in the Radiant Well, there's going to be a lot of Thrall and stuff like that that are going to be running up to you. And that is exactly what you want to have on when you're whispering the boss. You're going to notice that Titans on your team are going to be doing double the damage. So it's very effective, and make sure your Titans are using the Syntheseps. Using grenades that have an area of effect damage is definitely recommended, especially if you're on a solar subclass. You want to be using those solar grenades as they last a pretty long time. In addition to that, you can run the incendiary grenades if you're on a hammer titan, or if you're on the golden gun. That's what I would personally recommend. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the actual encounter and how you should split up teams. So on the left side of the map there is crystals. That's what we call them. Of course, you can call them just the left team, or you can call them the crystal team. And on the right hand side of this room there are trees, so you can call that the tree side or the right hand side. You want to split up your fire team evenly, so one hammer, one warlock, and one hunter on the left side, and the exact same on the right side. So basically 2 teams of 3. Let's go ahead and dissect this because there are tons of different moving pieces and I really want to get you guys up to scratch as quickly as possible. Stand on all 6 of the plates and that will then start the encounter. You'll drop down and pass by Riven's body. Now this is important because once you're done with one complete damage cycle, the second time you drop down here after standing on plates will be a little bit different. You're going to be falling in slow motion the entire way down and you're going to have to shoot these spores that are on Riven's body. This isn't really important right now, but we'll talk about that once it comes to that specific situation. Both sets of teams will want to go to their respective right hand sides and go through the doorway until they get to this room. Now both sides are identical in terms of the actual layout of the room. The only difference is that it's filled with trees on the right hand side, and on the left hand side it's filled with crystals. So if you're ever on different teams, feel free to run both sides or either side. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day they're the same. It is the person's responsibility who is up on the balcony to take care of their hobgoblins as quickly as possible. They can be extremely disruptive to those in the middle, and also even on the other side of the balcony they can get a shot on you if you're weak and you're hiding behind your respective pillar. So that should be your number one priority if you're on the balcony, and the person who's in the middle should be taking care of a lot of the taken scions. There are plenty of them that spawn in, so a weapon with rampage or kill clip is definitely needed if you want to mow through them very quickly. Now before I get to the actual mechanics and what happens in this encounter, I think I have to talk about the layout of this entire raid final boss area. So when you go down those plates, you're going to be dropped down to floor number 1, and in floor number 1 is this room for both the left side, which is crystals, and the right side, which is trees. Now once you're done with this specific room, you're actually going to go up a layer and up a lift, a grav lift or an elevator, whatever you want to call it, and you're going to go to room 2. It's important to note that floor number 2 is the exact same as floor number 1 in terms of the map layout. The only difference is that the encounter will change. Now there's 2 possible encounters that all 6 players, regardless of what team you're on, can have. These 2 encounters are very much linked together, and that's why both teams on either the crystal side and the tree side will never be doing the same encounter at the same time on the same floor. Now as you go up a floor, you will change encounters and both sides will swap encounters, but there is a reason why that happens. So once we get into the fine details, I'll explain more about it, but essentially as the crystal team is doing one encounter, that sets off a chain of events that happen in the other room, which is on the tree side, and they're going to then do their encounter, and it's vital that you guys communicate with each other and be very specific with your callouts. If one team messes up, then the other team is ultimately doomed and you will both wipe on floor number 1. Now if you complete that encounter correctly on floor number 1, you will then go up to floor number 2 and you'll actually change encounters. So it's very cool, and I love how Bungie made this raid specifically, and it really feels like no one person can be carried and everyone has their own responsibilities and has to really carry their own weight. So now we have an idea of what the map looks like and everything like that. Let's jump into these specific encounters that you must complete while you're in these rooms. Alright, let's rewind it just a little bit so that I can show you one full floor. So essentially I'll show you my perspective and then the next encounter's perspective. I'm showing you this one first because this is the first step of each floor. It's random which team gets it, but this is the first one. So it is my team's job right now to flinch the boss. And you can flinch him in this specific scenario by shooting him in the mouth. Now there's 2 different flinch mechanics and it's totally random. Number 1, it may be his tentacle that you have to to bait and then shoot, or it can be shooting him in the mouth once it is glowing orange. As you can see, I flinch the boss and then he reveals his eyes, and there's going to be 2 of them that are glowing. You want to take note of those glowing eyes and then relay that information to the other team. Now in this specific scenario, the other team is in the crystal room, and what I'm going to show you is what that looks like from the other team's perspective. So as you can see now, we're looking at the other room's footage, and right now my teammates gave me the call out for the specific eyes, and we are now doing DPS. We are shooting the blight in his mouth for roughly about 8, 9, 10 seconds, and after that is done, one of us, which is me in this specific video, is responsible for taking out the 2 eyes that my teammates gave me a call out for. Now that is basically the very bare bones explanation of this encounter. So now let's go back to the original footage where I was on the first team that basically started the encounter. As soon as we were done with basically giving the call out to our other teammates and flinching the boss, we now have to take care of the knight that spawns. Now he's called Eye of Riven, I believe, and he's going to drop something on the ground. This is the same thing that we've been using basically throughout the entirety of the raid. One person is going to pick it up while the other person is going to stand in this window right here and basically guide him. Now I will be seeing symbols if I'm standing at this window, but he will not see these symbols. Instead, he will see these basically like circular particles, but they will not be symbols. It's just going to be basically like an empty circle with nothing on it. So I have to guide him to the correct symbol. Now he will basically tell me what the correct symbol is because he will see it right in front of the window that I am standing on. So you do have to know the callouts here for all of the symbols and exactly where the staircase is located and that kind of stuff. So the middle pit is something that we call out. I call out top middle, top left, you know. Now here is the catch. Once the first person picks up the actual relic and slams one time, he will not be able to go to the next floor and do the same job. So you and the person who are looking through the window and guiding is going to have to switch with that person. So now the person who is actually dunking the ball or cleansing is going to have to go up to the window, and the person who is guiding at the window will have to go pick up the relic and do that person's job. So it's basically like a switcheroo. Now keep in mind that regardless of the encounter or the floor that you're on, the Eye of Riven Knight will spawn no matter what. You want to make sure you kill him before you're actually done with your duties. That way he doesn't distract you while you're trying to snipe an eye or do anything like that, because he does hit very hard. So before the boss comes, make sure that you kill him so that he's down and the object is just sitting there waiting for you to pick up. It's on a 40-second timer, so it's really not a big deal if you kill it too early. And on top of that, it's worth noting that you cannot hold the object in your hand for too long. There is a debuff in the left of your screen, and if it gets the time sent, it would automatically blow you up. So do not pick it up and hold it and just blast people non-stop and use it as a DPS weapon, because it will blow you up and you won't be able to finish the actual encounter and the proper mechanic. So 2 things that I should talk about when you are the person with the relic or the Eye of Riven in your hands. The grenade button is what cleanses. If you hit the wrong one, you're going to die as well. And there's also a 30-second switch. So essentially, if you're taking too long with the Eye of Riven, the actual symbol locations will change for the guider, the person who is in the window, or the observer, whatever you want to call him. The symbols will actually change around after 30 seconds. So you have to make sure you're not very slow and you have a little bit of a coordination. So let's take a look at some of these symbols starting from left to right, and I'm going to give you guys my team specific call out so that hopefully that can help you guys out when determining which symbols are called what. So starting from the left staircase, we would call that the left bottom staircase, and that is a fire breathing dragon to the left. Again, it is very important to mention which side because there are 2 of them. As you can see up the stairs just slightly, which is called probably the left stairs middle right, that is a fire breathing dragon to the right. Now above him, I call that the S snake with 2 heads. To the left of the S snake, we then have a diving bird, and on top of him we have a dragon with a spear. Now it is important that he is holding it and it is not the spear through his neck. So for that specific one, I would call that the stripper dragon or the pole dancer dragon. That's just a funny little call out that me and my fire team came up with. Now right beside the guardian that is actually holding the relic is the basic bird. That's the one that is just doing nothing but looking left. To the right of him, we have the 2 fish swimming in a circle, or you can call them the 69 fish. And then to the right of that, we have the dragon with the spear through its neck. Under that, we have a fish swimming to the left with 2 seaweeds. Under that, we then have the Flappy Bird. The Flappy Bird is the one with massive wings flying to the left. And to the right of that one and slightly above him, we have a bird sitting on a branch. So those are the callouts that we have. Hopefully that kind of, resonates with you. And not too many of these are difficult and different from what you guys would normally say in your callouts. But it's just important to note that the person who is observing should call out based on his perspective, not on the runner's perspective. So the runner or the person with a relic is responsible for knowing which way to go based on your specific call out. So if the observer says it's left staircase, he should know to go to his right, because that is of course the observer's left. So you should say left staircase, middle of it. Left staircase on the left side. You can say something like left staircase, first one on the right. Stuff like that can help out the runner a lot. The ones up top where the basic bird are, you want to call that the top middle, and then you can specify if it's the top middle right one or the top middle left one. There's some that are all the way on the left and all the way on the right, and those are called the flower pot ones. They're right beside, the pot of flowers. And there's also the middle pit. None of them show up here, but on screen right in the middle bottom, that is the pit location. The callouts for that are front pit, which is the one closest to me. We then have the top left pit and the top right pit. It is shaped like a triangle, so you really can't mess this one up too much. Before we get to the DPS phase, I do want to mention the other flinch mechanic, and again, these two are totally random. It could be the fire breathing from his mouth, or it can be his tentacles. You'll know that it's his tentacles because they will obviously be on the map. If his tentacles aren't there and he's breathing fire from his mouth, then you have that specific one. But either way, you're going to flinch him with the Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun. Now for the tentacles, there's going to be one on either side of his body. I would choose to bait the one which has less adds on that side. So in my case, that was the left side. What you want to do is stand directly underneath it for a solid second, not a split second, not a BS second, a full second. And it's very important that you stay there for that full duration, because sometimes he'll actually pretend to go back and do his slam animation and the bait will fail and he'll go back to his regular position, and you'll be wasting crucial time that you need to basically flinch him and give the call out to your teammates before he disappears and it becomes a wipe. So stay there for a solid second. You're gonna see that his tentacle starts to turn white, and then once it starts looking crusty and you see his spikes coming out of his tentacles, he's going to make a rattlesnake audio cue. Once he makes that audio cue, then the animation is locked in, and then you can just run the hell out of there before you get slammed. And I would actually recommend jumping as he's slamming. And why you do this is because you actually get launched in the air if you're not currently in the air while he slams. And if you're using a Celestial Nighthawk, you don't want to pop it on the ground, have him launch you and then miss your shot while you're in the air. So I would personally jump, pop the golden gun midair, he slams it, and then you can take that shot very easily like you're seeing in the background footage. Alright, so this is the last thing we're doing before we get up to the DPS phase, and I definitely need to mention this because this is a key element in the boss fight, and that is the eyes. Here's a map of the eyes that I quickly made in Photoshop, and what you want to do is split his face down the middle. On the left hand side, obviously we have 5 left eyes, and on the right hand side we have 5 right eyes. So what you want to do is take a look at this picture and envision all of these eyes on a horizontal plane. That's how you're going to get from L1 to L5 in a very simple manner, and it's going to stick in your head very easily. So the key thing to remember is that verticality does not matter when you're looking at the eyes. Think of it all on one horizontal plane and you should be good. There shouldn't be any issues whatsoever. If you take a look at L1, the next one to the right of that is obviously L2, and then to the right of that is L3, and then L4, and then L5, and it's the same thing on the right hand side. The first one, if you're going left to right, is R1, then it's R2, then R3, then R4, then R5. It's very, very simple, guys. This is something that should maybe take you 10 minutes maximum, and if you just do a few runs of Riven and you guys wipe a lot, you'll easily get this down pat. So there shouldn't be any issues there. Split his face down the middle and make sure these callouts are correct, because if you shoot the wrong eye when it's time to shoot, you will be instantly wiped, and it's one of the most frustrating ways to wipe. Trust me, I know. Alright, so now that you're done with floor number 1 and floor number 2, go ahead and take the grav lift that spawns in the pit of floor 2 up to the main floor. this is going to actually get you to the damage phase, but there are 3 stuns that you need to do to the boss prior, and there are 6 total eyes that you need to keep track of out of 8. We'll get to that in a second, but one tip I can recommend is making sure that you do not go up the grav lift until the opposite team is also ready to go up the grav lift. Now 4 of you here will be dealing with the 2 ogres that spawn on the side of the boss. They are an absolute nuisance, so make sure that you're team shotting them because they will actually push you outside of your radiant well, and that will obviously cause you to not be invincible and die. The radiant wells are very essential, so make sure those are going down immediately as you guys are rotating to get to the next flinch spot for the boss. Now as you guys can see, I am on flinch duty right now, so it is just me and my friend who is recording the eyes that are not shooting the ogres. As you can see, I shoot, the eyes open up, and my friend is taking note of that. Now what he did is took a piece of paper and wrote down all 6 of my fire team names on that piece of paper. He then took a random selection of the eyes that are popping up and putting them beside each and every one of our fire team members. That way, by the time we're done with this 3rd and final stun, every single one of our 6 will have a letter and a number beside their name. So example, I will have, I'm not too sure what I have in this video, maybe it was like R3 if I remember correctly, and then right before we do DPS, our fire team member will look at his piece of paper and he will say, alright, nKuch, you got R3, this person has this person has this, and everyone's doing damage, everyone's name gets called out in their letter, and everyone is responsible for simply shooting 1 eye. The guy who wrote down on the piece of paper will give a call out, 3, 2, 1, boom. Everyone shoots all at the same time. So as you can see, I got about 6 shots in with my spindle. We shot the eyes once he gave the call out, and just like that, we are done with this specific damage phase for the boss. All you got to do now is clear out the ads, and right after that, immediately get back to your plates. As you can see in the bottom left corner, there is a creeping darkness. If this gets to 10, you are dead. So get to your plates absolutely immediately and try not to die like my friend right there. Yeah, you want to do that. If you get lost going to your plate, honestly, that's just really your fault. You have to know your rights and your lefts in here. It is a circular room, so it does get a little bit confusing, but one way of helping you figure that out is whether or not you're tree side or if you're on the gem or crystal side. It really is that easy. You guys might be wondering, why is her health still so high if we've done 1 full phase and at this point we're just rinsing and repeating? Well, it's so high because this is where the bulk of your damage will come from. As you can see, there are spores all over Riven's body. You need to shoot and destroy as many of these as possible, and if you're watching the health bar, it is climbing down at a rapid pace. So this is where you're really going to do the bulk of the damage, so make sure you shoot as many of these as possible. Now be careful because Axion Seekers will spawn out of them, and if you're shooting too many and you don't have time to take out the Axion Seekers, they will unfortunately kill you. Now I am 555 power and it takes about 2 of them to take me out, so just be very careful. You really don't want to die here, especially if you've made it this far in the encounter. So at this point, it really is a rinse and repeat, guys. It's very, very simple. You have to do that 1 more time and you should have enough damage to get to the 10% mechanic. I skipped over the second phase because it was essentially a rinse and repeat like I mentioned, and we are now back to the spores. Now once we take out enough of these, the health will go down to the 10% threshold, and you can stare at that health bar right now, and once we get there, we will get teleported to the Ascendant realm. The Ascendant realm might look intimidating like I mentioned earlier, but it really isn't too bad. What you want to do is just shoot all of these ads that spawn up and make sure to kill them before they push you off the edge. If too many of you die, you may not be able to finish off the boss at the end, so just be very careful. If you have 2 people dead, you can obviously still finish it, but it will be a lot more complicated. So follow the path that I'm going on. You just want to keep jumping over to every single one of these platforms, and in a second here, you're actually going to want to go ahead, jump to this one, and then turn around. You're going to turn around and jump up, and this is the quickest way to get to the ending. Now the other actual path leads to the ending as well, but it is a lot longer, and you may die going that way if you're not very, very fast. So this is definitely the best way to go. You're going to turn around once again. There's going to be more ads, take them out. And as you can see, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but we're actually not gaining back any health whatsoever. I'm regaining because I do have a helmet, which is the one where if you pick up an orb, your health regens right away. But my teammates, they're not regenning any of their health. So what you want to do is make sure that the warlocks are on top of their game. They need to be putting down rifts as a team, you know, when everyone's bunched up together, and they also want to put down their radiant wells. They want to charge up their grenades and throw them. And as you can see, our health is really dropping down fast. That is because we are taking a little bit too long. So even though you have some time and it's pretty comfortable, just make sure that you're not too slow or you will get wiped. We get teleported back into here, and this is where the boss is at the final stand. As you can see, the health bar is going down, and boom, we do get it. But that is not it. Before you put the controllers down and start celebrating, hold the phone, because you need to actually enter Riven's mouth. Yep. Things get a little bit strange, but you're going inside the mouth. The tongue's just sticking out there, and ooh, hop on that slippery little surface right there and go inside, and there's going to be a blight. Now, everybody needs to team shot the crap out of this blight, because if you do not, you get wiped from the beginning of the encounter. And nobody wants to do that again. So make sure you guys shoot it, get it done. You're then going to get a key, and that will unlock the chest at the end of the 7th encounter. But that is the boss fight done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it, and I really hope to God that you guys get this done. It is a difficult encounter, but it is a beautiful raid, and I think everybody should experience this at least once. If you guys enjoyed, if this helped you in any way, shape, or form, a like rating would be very much appreciated. Subscribe for more daily Destiny 2 Forsaken content. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you all later. Peace.